Squirreling. Explanation of squirreling. The concept of squirreling refers to the alteration or misapplication of L. Ron Hubbard's original teachings, and under the Keeping Scientology Working (KSW) policy, it is regarded as a serious violation of Scientology doctrine. KSW outlines 10 points to ensure the exact application and preservation of standard tech in both Dianetics and Scientology, emphasizing the eradication of any deviation from Hubbard's teachings. In the Scientology community, calling someone a squirrel is one of the harshest insults, as it implies they have altered or corrupted the original tech. LRH policy on squirreling. As Mike Rinder, a former high-level executive in Scientology, mentioned on his blog, according to L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige is a suppressive squirrel. Here's an LRH policy letter about squirreling. For some years now we have had a word squirreling. It means altering Scientology, offbeat practices. It is a bad thing. Squirreling is today destructive of a workable system. L. Ron Hubbard HCOPL, the 14th of February 65, Safeguarding Technology. David Miscavige's alleged squirreling of standard tech. Despite the strict mandates of KSW, many former members and critics accuse David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology, of squirreling Hubbard's technology. Numerous examples have surfaced where David Miscavige has reportedly altered key aspects of Hubbard's work, directly conflicting with KSW's principles of preserving the founder's teachings. Squirreling through auditor retraining. One major point of contention is David Miscavige's overhaul of auditor training. In 1996, David Miscavige cancelled the certificates of every auditor globally if they refused to restart all of the overhauled training from the bottom up, stating that none had been properly trained, even those directly trained by Hubbard himself. In 2014, David Miscavige repeated this action once again with Golden Age of Tech Phase 2. Such sweeping cancellations are unprecedented in Scientology history, and many viewed them as a blatant act of squirreling that would have never been endorsed by LRH, L. Ron Hubbard. Squirreling via the Ideal Org strategy. Another significant example of David Miscavige's squirreling is his introduction of the Ideal Org strategy, a real estate fundraising initiative. Critics argue that this strategy runs counter to Hubbard's original vision for Scientology, as outlined in his policy letters on ideal organizations. Many view David Miscavige's approach as exploiting Scientology members for fundraising, a departure from what Hubbard had intended. The stark difference between David Miscavige's interpretation and the founder's original vision has led to accusations that David Miscavige does not fully believe in the tenets of Scientology. Changes to the emitter, another act of squirreling. Under David Miscavige's leadership, significant changes have been made to the emitter, a central device in Scientology auditing. One major modification involved altering the definition of the floating needle, a key element used to gauge progress during auditing. Additionally, David Miscavige introduced a new emitter that interpolates data through a lookup chart instead of providing a direct reading from the subject. This change is seen by many as a deceptive sleight of hand within the auditing process, further illustrating David Miscavige's squirreling. Cancellation of key courses, St. Hill and Class 8. Another critical example of David Miscavige's squirreling is the discontinuation of key Scientology courses. The St. Hill Special Briefing Course, an intensive training program central to the organization, has not been offered since 2006. Similarly, the Class 8 course has been eradicated entirely. These courses, once foundational to Scientologists' training, no longer exist under David Miscavige's leadership. The removal of such pivotal elements of Scientology training is seen by many as a betrayal of Hubbard's original teachings. Impact of squirreling on former members. Many ex-members have shared their frustrations online, accusing David Miscavige of making harmful changes to the tech that go against KSW. A former member who spent over 30 years in the organization expressed disbelief, stating, "How can they stay in there when David Miscavige has changed the tech in some awful ways? I mean really negative, horrible ways." These concerns illustrate the growing dissatisfaction among members who believe that David Miscavige's actions undermine the integrity of Scientology's core teachings. Conclusion. Squirreling under David Miscavige. While the KSW policy demands strict adherence to Hubbard's original teachings, David Miscavige's leadership has introduced numerous changes that many consider acts of squirreling and changing source. These changes, including auditor retraining, alterations to the emitter, and the discontinuation of key courses, have caused division within the organization. Former members and critics see David Miscavige's actions as a departure from the very principles KSW was designed to protect, raising questions about the authenticity of David Miscavige's leadership and his commitment to LRH's original vision.